awakening. Awakening to our deepest selves, awakening to our deepest desires. For the last 10 days, I've been living with the prayer and intention every day. May I fully inhabit today's longings. I'm here to tell you that awakening to your longings is a very powerful thing to do. If that speaks to you, I commend it to you. What's happened for me is that I've seen that longings are bittersweet. There's deep joy in having longing, and there's deep grief often in longing. You know, longing for a world where every child is safe. There's just a lot of grief right there to wake up to if you're willing to inhabit that longing. And so each day I've been on kind of a roller coaster of longing, but it's woken me up, and that was my intention. I felt like I'd just gotten into kind of a slouchy, too long of a winter, kind of a dead zone, and I really wanted to wake up. I think longing is a wonderful wake-up tool. It's one of my spiritual practices to pay attention to what I'm longing for. And of course, the best part about longing is if you can have what you're longing for, or create what you're longing for, or do what you're longing to do. That's not always possible at all. And so then the longing simply has to be what you inhabit. I got a letter from a prisoner who wrote from solitary confinement, really just in a place of agony and hell, and saying, you know, he had lost his temper, he'd done something stupid in prison, don't we all? And of course, the ramifications when I yell at my kid, even though probably I should be put in solitary confinement sometime, I'm not. In prison, you yell at a guard, that's going to happen. And so he was writing with this letter that was so full of longing that I didn't receive for 2 weeks. And when I received it, I thought, you know, just as a blessing, reading the pain of this letter, I thought, may the longing itself have freed you. The fact that you wrote this letter, the fact that you let yourself grieve and long, may that act itself have awakened you to accompaniment. Because when we accompany our own longings, in a way, we're waking up to ourselves, to who we are. There are a lot of forces in the culture that really don't want us to be awake, that really prefer we're asleep. And so numbing out by whatever means we choose is something that's very easy for most of us to do. And it's not always a bad idea to numb out. Sometimes it's just too much to inhabit your longings. The disparity between being fully inhabiting your longings and the life you live is just too painful. So then kind of going back to sleep can be a sensible, wise choice. But for those of us who want to be awake for the good stuff, part of the paradox is we have to wake up to all the stuff. Years ago, I heard a speaker, and she was talking about how we think that safety comes with what's familiar and comfortable, but actually we're safer when we're more awake. And to demonstrate this, she had us put our hands together. You know, if you do this, try it right now if you can. If you put your hands together, there will be a way that you very comfortably do it. There will be one hand, in my case my right, where the right pointer comes over the left pointer, and that's the comfortable one. Then she said to us, okay, now switch hands, do it the other way. So I did, as I am now, and I encourage you to do that. And when I did, I just felt less comfortable because it's not the way that I habitually do this. And she said, okay, but look closely. Do one and then the other. In which way, doing it, are you more aware of your fingers? In which way, when you do it, do you pay more attention to the fact that you're doing it? And what's true is when you do it the habitual way, for me, it's so habitual that part of me just kind of nods off right there. Whereas when it's this way, part of me is saying, that's different, and I'm waking up to it. And she said, you know, you're actually safer, even though we feel safe when we're doing what's habitual, when we're leaning into comfort, when we're doing what we always do. Actually, we're safer when we're more awake. So much in this culture lures us to sleep by promising that we will be safe if we only stay asleep. Being awake, being fully awake, awakening ourselves does not promise safety. And yet we know In fact, that there's no such thing as safety anyway. Of course, we're all as careful as we can be not to get physically hurt, to protect the people that we love. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of awakeness that brings our spirit fully onto the planet. Yes, it brings more pain to be alive, but it also brings so much more joy. What I've learned as I've inhabited my longing is that the lows are lower, but the highs are so much higher. The colors are so much brighter. My mind is so much sharper and more alive. My heart is so much more open. I wouldn't trade it for anything. How about you? When you inhabit your longings, what wakes up? What longings speak to you, wake you up, urge you to change, to do something, to take a risk, to say something? May this community here be a place where we can dare to awaken, where we can dare to challenge ourselves to be awake, where we can learn from one another, find parts of ourselves that have been so long asleep we forgot they were even there, and wake up to them.